The restaurant should have been quiet. It was long past closing hours and the last of the staff had gone home. But tonight, the place glowed with low golden light, as if the air itself understood this dinner wasn't meant for outsiders. The entire dining room was empty except for one long table set with crystal glasses, polished silver, and a single bottle of Bordeaux breathing in the middle. At the head of the table sat Malik Rowan, a man who carried power the way other men carried cologne, a presence that lingered in the air, sharp and undeniable. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he had the look of someone who had won every battle life dared to throw at him. But his eyes were restless. They flicked from the untouched wine glass to the door, as if waiting for something more dangerous than the dinner he had agreed to. Across from him lounged Jonas Creed, Malik's longtime business partner. Jonas was all charm and smooth edges, the kind of man who looked harmless until he smiled too wide. Tonight, his smile stretched even thinner than usual, and it didn't quite reach his eyes. He kept drumming his fingers on the table, the way a man does when he's carrying a secret too heavy to sit still with. On Malik's right sat Lena Rowan, his wife. Elegant, precise, and sharp as broken glass. Lena was the kind of woman who never needed to raise her voice to command attention. Every flick of her wrist, every deliberate sip of her wine was loaded with meaning. And tonight, her gaze kept sliding toward her husband with a quiet suspicion that made the air colder than it should have been. Hovering just behind the shadows was Victor Hale, Malik's fixer. He wasn't seated at the table. He never sat when there was work to be done. Victor's eyes missed nothing. He stood still, arms folded like a wolf disguised in a tailored black suit. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened because his words usually came right before someone disappeared. And then there was Evelyn Hart, the waitress. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to clock out, tie her apron, and leave with the others hours ago. But Malik's people had requested her specifically, something about her being discreet professional. Evelyn didn't feel discreet. She felt like an imposter carrying plates into a room of wolves. She tried to keep her head down, focus on her job, pretend she wasn't breathing in their secrets. She poured wine, set down dishes, and reminded herself not to eavesdrop. But it was impossible not to notice the way Lena's words cut sharper than her knife, or the way Jonas kept grinning like a man trying to hide a tremor in his hands. And then it happened. When Evelyn reached to replace Malik's napkin, a folded piece of paper slipped onto her tray. At first, she thought it was part of the table setting. But then she saw Malik's name scrawled on the front in quick, uneven handwriting. She froze. Something wrong. Malik's voice was low, velvet laced with iron. Evelyn swallowed and slid the napkin, and the note hidden beneath it, onto the table beside his plate. No, sir. Malik's fingers closed over it before anyone else noticed. He didn't open it right away. He simply placed it under his palm, his expression unreadable. But Lena noticed the hesitation. "What's that?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "Nothing," Malik replied smoothly, but Jonas's gaze lingered on the note too long. Evelyn busied herself collecting plates, heart pounding in her chest. She told herself to walk away, but her eyes flicked back, just for a second, as Malik unfolded the slip beneath the table. It was only a handful of words, but the message was enough to shift the entire room. "They're planning to take 10 million. You won't survive it." Malik's jaw tightened, his grip on the paper crumpling its edges. For the first time that night, the man who looked untouchable suddenly seemed mortal. Jonas noticed the change. "Bad news?" he asked, voice feigning casual, but his eyes glinting with something hungrier. Malik didn't answer right away. His gaze swept across the table. Jonas, too eager. Lena, watching like a hawk. Evelyn, trying to pretend she hadn't seen anything. Victor, unreadable but already sensing trouble. Finally, Malik slid the note into his pocket and forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just business," he said. But Evelyn knew better. She had seen the words. She had read what was never meant for her eyes. And as her hands trembled against the tray, she understood something terrifying. She wasn't just serving dinner tonight. She had been dragged into a storm, she could never escape. The crack in their perfect lives had opened, and nothing in this room would ever be the same again. The morning after the dinner, Evelyn couldn't shake the weight of that note. It sat in her memory like a ticking clock, each word echoing louder every time she tried to push it away. They're planning to take 10 million. You won't survive it. She replayed the moment in her head on the bus ride to work, staring out the fogged window as the city blurred past. A waitress wasn't supposed to be part of something like this. She was supposed to refill wine glasses, smile politely, and go home with sore feet and tips in her pocket. That's all. But now, she was tangled in something bigger than her, bigger than she ever wanted to imagine. Should she quit? Walk away before the storm reached her? Or stay silent, pretend she hadn't seen anything, and hope the storm blew past? By the time she slipped into the back kitchen of the restaurant, her decision wasn't any clearer. The clatter of pots, the hiss of steam, the chatter of cooks, everything sounded normal, too normal, as if the building itself had no idea of the secret sitting like fire in Evelyn's chest. Then she heard it, a voice, low, tense, angry, leaking through the thin door of the manager's office. She froze mid-step, tray in hand, and tilted her head just slightly. "Don't tell me about delays." Jonas Creed snapped into his phone. His voice was sharp, nothing like the charming grin he wore at the dinner table. "The payout happens when I say it happens. 10 million. Clean. And if Rowan asks, it's just another investment." Evelyn's stomach dropped. She edged closer, her breath shallow. "You think I'm afraid of him?" Jonas hissed, his voice almost a growl. "Malik doesn't even know who to trust anymore. That's the beauty of it. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. Just make sure the money moves quietly. I'm not going down for this." A chair scraped inside the office. Evelyn panicked and darted back behind the fridge, pressing herself into the cold steel. Jonas's footsteps approached the door, and a second later, he stormed out, phone still in hand, his face a mask of rage. He didn't see her, but Evelyn's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped her tray. Her heart was still pounding when the front door swung open. Malik Rowan stepped in, every inch of him radiating authority. His eyes, sharp and dark, scanned the room until they locked on Jonas. "Jonas," Malik said, voice steady but heavy with suspicion. Jonas stiffened. "Malik, didn't expect you here this early." "That's obvious," Malik replied, taking a slow step forward. "You've been busy, I hear. Phone calls. Meetings." He let the words hang like a blade. "What exactly are you up to?" Jonas chuckled, but it was the kind of laugh that cracked at the edges. "Business, Malik. Just business. You worry too much." Malik studied him for a long, tense moment. The silence stretched until even the cooks in the back slowed their work to listen. Finally, Malik leaned in slightly, his voice low enough that only Jonas, and unfortunately Evelyn, could hear. "Don't lie to me. Not now." Jonas's grin faltered, but only for a second. He clapped Malik on the shoulder, masking his nerves with forced cheer. "Relax, brother. We've built this empire together. Never burn it down." But Evelyn, hiding in the kitchen, knew the truth. Jonas was already striking the match. Later that night, the storm took a different shape. Lena Rowan stood in the master bedroom of their penthouse, staring out at the glittering skyline. Her reflection in the window was all sharp lines, jaw clenched, eyes narrowed. She didn't look like a wife. She looked like a detective. "You've been distracted," she said, not turning as Malik loosened his tie behind her. "I've been working." "That waitress," Lena continued smoothly. "Evelyn, you look at her like she's more than just staff." Malik paused. His silence was answer enough. Lena turned, her diamond earrings catching the city light. "Don't insult me by denying it. I know the look in a man's eyes. And I saw yours." Malik finally met her gaze, his voice low, controlled. "Lena, don't start this." "Don't start," she snapped, her composure cracking. "Your empire is crumbling, Malik, and instead of shoring it up, you're letting yourself get distracted by her." The venom in that last word hung between them like smoke. Malik didn't reply. His silence was louder than any confession. Meanwhile, Across the city, Evelyn hurried down the dark street after her shift, clutching her coat tight against the chill. She had nearly convinced herself she was safe when she heard it. Footsteps behind her. Slow, steady, intentional. She glanced over her shoulder. A tall figure in a dark coat followed at a careful distance. When the streetlight hit his face, her stomach dropped. Victor Hale. He didn't smile. He didn't even speak. He just followed, his eyes locked on her, as if marking her, as if deciding what to do with her. Evelyn quickened her pace. She knew, without a shred of doubt, that she was no longer just a waitress in their world. She was a liability, and liabilities, she feared, didn't last long around men like Malik Rowan. Evelyn had promised herself she wouldn't get pulled deeper. She had promised she would stay away, do her shifts, and keep her head down. But Malik Rowan had a way of pulling people in without even trying. He wasn't just a man, he was a force. It started with small things. A glance that lingered a second too long. A question that went beyond, "How's your day?" into something sharper, something that stripped her of pretense. When he looked at her, it felt like he could see the weight of her secrets and wasn't afraid of them. One evening, Malik waited until the restaurant emptied, asking Evelyn to stay behind under the excuse of helping with paperwork. The dining hall was quiet, the chandeliers dimmed to a golden haze, and the city lights pulsed through the tall glass windows like a heartbeat. "You don't scare easily," Malik said, his voice low, as he poured himself a drink. He didn't look at her when he spoke, just stared at the glass in his hand. "I'm a waitress," Evelyn replied softly. "I've seen worse than spilled wine." That made him laugh, a deep, genuine laugh that broke the tension for a moment. But then his smile faded. "You saw the note, didn't you?" Evelyn froze, her throat dry. He turned to her, his eyes sharp but not cruel. "Don't lie. I can read it on your face." She swallowed. I wasn't trying to." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "But you did. And now you know there are people at my table who want me ruined. Maybe dead." Their eyes locked. Evelyn should have stepped back, should have reminded herself that this man was married, dangerous, and drowning in problems she had no business sharing. But something in his gaze, a crack in his armor, a rare glimpse of vulnerability, rooted her to the spot. "I don't know anything," she whispered. "You know enough." His voice dipped lower, almost intimate. Enough to be in danger. Across the city, Lena Rowan stood at the balcony of their penthouse, staring down at the lights of the city. She had followed Malik earlier, quietly, discreetly. She had seen him linger too long with the waitress. The sight burned into her, feeding a suspicion she already nursed. She didn't need proof. She could feel in her bones. Malik was hiding something, and Evelyn Hart was the key. Meanwhile, Jonas Creed was tightening his net. He cornered Malik in the sleek glass office of Rowan Enterprises, papers spread across the polished mahogany desk. "It's a simple deal," Jonas said smoothly, sliding the contract toward him. "A clean investment, offshore accounts, guaranteed returns. We're talking easy money." Malik didn't touch the papers. "Why are you pushing this so hard?" Jonas smirked. "Because I like winning. And this, my friend, is a win." Malik leaned back, studying him. He'd known Jonas long enough to recognize when he was overselling. The charm, the grin, the too easy confidence, it all reeked of desperation. "This deal smells wrong," Malik said finally. Jonas leaned in, his smile tight. "What smells wrong is your paranoia. You're seeing ghosts everywhere, Malik. Sign the damn papers before someone else does." Malik didn't move. The tension between them hung like smoke in the air. That night, Evelyn's phone buzzed while she was folding napkins in the kitchen. She wiped her hands and pulled it from her apron pocket, expecting a message from her sister. But the screen froze her in place. An unknown number. A single text. "Stay quiet if you value your life." Her stomach dropped, the room spinning. She looked around instinctively, but the kitchen was empty. The cooks had left, the hum of the fridge the only sound. Her hand shook as she shoved the phone back into her pocket. Someone knew. Someone was watching. Later, Malik found her wiping down the last table, her face pale. "You okay?" he asked, stepping closer. She nodded too quickly. just tired. But he caught the tremor in her voice, the way she clutched the rag like it was a lifeline. He reached out, gently covering her hand with his. The contact sent a shiver up her arm. "You don't have to pretend with me," Malik said softly. For a moment, Evelyn let herself sink into his gaze. Strong, dangerous, magnetic. She knew she should pull away. She knew Lena's eyes were probably on them from somewhere unseen, and that Jonas's schemes were closing in fast. But in that second, under the warm glow of the chandeliers, she didn't feel like a waitress or a liability. She felt like someone seen. And that was how the seduction began. Not with a kiss, not with words of love, but with silence and secrets shared in the dangerous space between them. The night was colder than it should have been. The kind of cold that didn't come from the air, but from the silence. The way the street seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn had just finished her shift at the restaurant. She stepped out into the dimly lit parking lot, pulling her coat tighter when she saw the flashing blue lights. A police car. 2 officers bent over something on the ground. At first, she thought it was a drunk man who had passed out. Maybe a homeless person. But as she crept closer, curiosity gnawing at her, the sight froze her where she stood. It was a body. A young man, no older than 30, his shirt torn and stained with blood, his briefcase spilled open beside him. Papers fluttered across the asphalt like fallen leaves. Victim of a mugging, one officer muttered to the other. Poor bastard. Wrong place, wrong time. But Evelyn's eyes caught something the officers didn't notice. The sleek black pen clipped inside the man's jacket pocket. She had seen that pen before. It was embossed with Rowan Enterprises. The dead man wasn't random. He was one of Malik's. Her stomach tightened. From the shadows near the edge of the lot, a figure emerged. Tall, composed, moving with the kind of certainty that didn't belong to a bystander. Evelyn's heart skipped. Victor Hale. He walked past the officers without so much as a glance, his presence so commanding that even they seemed to unconsciously step aside. He crouched near the body, scanned the scene once, then straightened. This wasn't a mugging, Victor said flatly, his tone leaving no room for debate. Wallet untouched. Watch still on the wrist. Whoever did this wanted him dead. The officers shifted uncomfortably. And you are. Victor slipped a card from his pocket, his face unreadable. Security advisor for Rowan Enterprises. This man was one of ours. Junior accountant. Name's Kyle Merritt. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered Kyle, quiet, polite, always the one carrying stacks of files into meetings. He was harmless, which made his presence here, lifeless on the cold pavement, all the more chilling. Minutes later, Malik arrived. His black car pulled up, headlights slicing through the gloom. He stepped out, expression tight, eyes locked on the body. Not Kyle, Malik muttered, his voice almost a growl. He crouched down, staring at the young man as if trying to make sense of it. He handled the offshore accounts, the deal Jonas kept pushing. Victor's jaw tightened. Someone silenced him. Malik's eyes darted to the officers. And they're calling a mugging? Convenient. Victor leaned in, his voice low, so only Malik could hear. This isn't about money anymore. This is blood money. Someone wanted him gone before he could talk. Malik straightened, the weight of realization settling on his shoulders. The betrayal around him wasn't just financial, it was deadly. Evelyn should have walked away then. She should have turned, gone home, and locked her door. But something held her rooted. She couldn't stop watching. That's when she saw it. Victor bent near the body again, gloved hands moving quickly, quietly. He plucked something from Kyle's pocket, a folded slip of paper smeared with blood. Evelyn squinted from the shadows, but she couldn't see what was written. Whatever it was, Victor slid it into his coat and stood as if nothing had happened. The officers didn't notice. Malik didn't notice, but Evelyn did. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She wasn't supposed to see this. She knew it, and yet her eyes had betrayed her. Victor looked up suddenly, his gaze sweeping the lot. For a terrifying moment, his eyes locked with hers. Cold, calculating. Evelyn stumbled back, ducking behind a parked car, heart racing. She stayed frozen until the sound of Malik's car, door slamming, echoed through the lot. Then, slowly, Carefully, she dared to peek again. Malik and Victor were gone. The body was being loaded into the coroner's van. The parking lot was empty. But Evelyn's life wasn't. Not anymore. She had seen too much. The body, the truth behind the mugging, the evidence Victor had pocketed. And now, whether she wanted it or not, she was part of it. The game wasn't just about money. It was about survival. And Evelyn Hart had just stepped into the deadliest hand of her life. The storm had been building for weeks, silent and charged, like the air before lightning strikes. Malik knew he shouldn't be near Evelyn. She was dangerous in ways he couldn't explain, not because of what she might do, but because of what she made him feel. One late night, in the quiet of his penthouse office, Malik finally stopped fighting. Evelyn stood by the window, city lights casting a golden glow across her face. She looked exhausted, pulled into his world of secrets, but she carried herself with the same quiet strength that first drew him in. "You should go," Malik said, though his voice lacked conviction. Her eyes met his, steady, unafraid. "Do you really want me to?" The silence answered for him. He crossed the room in 2 strides, his hand brushing hers, then pulling her close as if gravity itself demanded it. Their kiss was fire, the kind that doesn't just warm but consumes. Months of restraint shattered in a heartbeat. For hours, they surrendered. To longing. To danger. To the illusion that, for one night, they could exist outside betrayal and blood money. When it was over, Malik rested against her, breathless. "We've just lit a fuse we can't put out." Evelyn's voice was a whisper. "Then let it burn." But the walls had ears. Lena knew. She had suspected long before she had proof. Malik's late nights, the way he lingered near Evelyn, the softness in his voice when he said her name. Still, seeing the confirmation, a lipstick stain on Malik's shirt collar, the faintest whiff of Evelyn's perfume on his jacket, struck her like a knife. But Lena wasn't the type to scream or cry. She was steel beneath silk. Instead of confrontation, she chose calculation. In her private study, Lena poured herself a glass of wine and opened her leather-bound planner. She didn't scribble Malik's name in anger or Evelyn's in fury. Instead, she wrote down dates, times, patterns. Proof. If Malik thought betrayal ended with passion, he was wrong. Lena wasn't planning to stop the affair. She was planning to weaponize it. Jonas was the first to strike. He had eyes everywhere, security cameras, employees desperate for cash, whispers traded in dark corners. It didn't take long for him to piece the affair together. One evening, he appeared in Malik's office, his grin sharp as a blade. "Passionate night with your little waitress?" Jonas asked casually, dropping a glossy envelope onto Malik's desk. Malik froze. Inside were photographs, him and Evelyn together. Too close. Too intimate. Undeniable. "Where did you get these?" Malik demanded, his voice low, dangerous. Jonas leaned back in the chair, lighting a cigar, as if he owned the room. "Does it matter? What matters is what I do with them. You see, I could send these to Lena tonight. Or, I could leak them to the press. Imagine the headlines. Malik Rowan, billionaire caught in scandalous affair while his company faces scrutiny." Malik's fists clenched. "What do you want?" Jonas blew a ring of smoke into the air, savoring the moment. "The $10 million deal. You sign it, no questions asked. Otherwise," he tapped the envelope, "your perfect life goes up in flames." That night, Malik sat alone in his penthouse, glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. Evelyn slept in the next room, unaware of the storm gathering. He looked out over the glittering skyline, but all he saw were cages. Money, betrayal, passion, blackmail. He had built an empire brick by brick, but one secret, one forbidden kiss, threatened to bring it all crashing down. And somewhere in the shadows, Lena was already sharpening her own blade of revenge. The realization came to Malik like a slow, sickening drop of poison. It was past midnight when Victor showed up at his penthouse, face pale, eyes hard. The city below was quiet, but Malik's world had never been louder. "They're together," Victor said without ceremony. "Lena and Jonas. They've aligned." Malik blinked. "No, Lena would never. Victor cut him off with a sharp look. You don't know Lena as well as you think. You hurt her. And Jonas? He's the snake who slithers into every crack. Now they're working as one. And trust me, Victor's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. It isn't you they're aiming at. It's Evelyn. The name landed like a hammer. Evelyn, the one person Malik never meant to drag this deep. She knows too much, Victor continued. The books, the parking lot, the body. She's a loose thread, Malik. And Lena intends to cut her loose. Malik gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles whitening. Betrayal from Lena was one thing. But Lena joining forces with Jonas? That was war. Meanwhile, Evelyn was closing the restaurant for the night when an unmarked envelope slid under the office door. Her first instinct was to ignore it. Malik had taught her that nothing anonymous ever brought good news. But curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her blood ran cold. It was the note. The one she had stumbled across weeks ago, tucked where it shouldn't have been, written in Malik's sharp, deliberate hand. She wasn't supposed to have read it, but she had. A note tied to the money, tied to the dead accountant, tied to everything. Now, it was here again, staring her in the face. Only this time, it came with smudges of Malik's fingerprints. Her hands trembled. Had Malik planted this? Was she just a pawn? The man she had given her body, her heart, her trust. Had he set her up from the very beginning? The fluorescent light above buzzed and flickered, casting the office in a strange, eerie glow. Evelyn dropped into the chair, clutching the note as if it might burn her. Nothing made sense anymore. Back in his penthouse, Malik poured himself a drink he couldn't swallow. His mind spun. If Lena and Jonas were truly united, he was surrounded. Every choice he made would be a trap. The door creaked. Victor hadn't left yet. You still think you can play both sides? Victor asked quietly. You've got one woman who wants your empire, another who holds your heart. And Jonas? He just wants to watch it all burn. Malik looked out the window at the endless glitter of the city. I can protect Evelyn. Victor shook his head. You can't protect her if she stops believing in you. And right now, I bet money someone's already making her doubt. Evelyn's phone buzzed. A blocked number. A voice came through, distorted but chillingly clear. How well do you really know Malik Rowan? The line went dead. Her breath hitched, panic crawling up her chest. She looked again at the note, at the fingerprints, at the damning evidence that tied Malik's hands to a conspiracy she couldn't yet name. Her chest tightened. The romance that once felt like escape now felt like a cage. Across town, Lena swirled a glass of red wine in her hand, seated across from Jonas in a private dining room. You see, Jonas said with a smirk, the trick isn't to destroy Malik. It's to let him destroy himself. Evelyn will believe he betrayed her, and when she turns on him, he'll unravel. Lena's lips curved into the faintest smile. Her pain had hardened into something sharper, revenge. Good. Let him feel what betrayal tastes like. They clinked glasses. A silent pact sealed in crystal and malice. Malik, pacing his penthouse floor, didn't know Evelyn was already holding the note in her shaking hands, already questioning everything. He thought the danger was outside. He didn't yet realize it was inside. Inside her doubts, inside her heart. And when love curdles into suspicion, it can kill faster than any bullet. The ballroom glittered like a palace of secrets. Chandeliers dripped golden light across the marble floors. Violins sang in the background, and waiters moved like shadows with trays of champagne. Tonight was supposed to be Malik's triumph, the annual gala marking his company's meteoric rise. But triumphs have a way of attracting vultures. Malik arrived in a tailored black tuxedo, jaw sharp, eyes unreadable. He walked into the room like he owned it, but beneath the surface he knew the walls were closing in. His empire was under siege, and tonight, every enemy was here, smiling through their masks. Evelyn stood by the fountain of roses, dressed in a deep emerald gown that turned heads as she moved. She should have felt like a queen. Instead, the folded note in her clutch burned against her hand. She hadn't confronted Malik yet. Not fully. But she had questions, dangerous ones, and tonight she wanted answers. That's when Lena found her. Gliding across the floor like a serpent in silk, Lena leaned close, her perfume intoxicating. Her voice was soft, almost tender, but the words dripped venom. "You think Malik loves you, don't you?" she whispered. "You think you're special." Evelyn stiffened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth." Lena's smile was thin and cold. "Malik uses women like pawns. He used me. Now he's using you. That note you found." Her eyes gleamed knowingly. "He wanted you to see it. He needed someone to take the fall when it all collapses. That someone is you." The room spun. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. Lena's words wormed their way into the cracks of her doubt, feeding the storm already raging inside her. Across the room, Jonas worked the crowd like a politician. His silver hair glowed under the chandeliers, his laughter smooth, his charm practiced. He clapped backs, shook hands, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Tonight," Jonas declared, raising his glass, "isn't just about Malik Rowan's success. It's about the future. And that future looks like a $10 million partnership." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A bold move, announcing the deal before Malik had signed. All eyes darted toward Malik. Pressure tightened like a noose. Malik's jaw flexed, his smile never faltering. But inside he was seething. Jonas was boxing him into a corner, turning his gala into a public chess match. At the edge of the room, Victor scanned the crowd. His instincts buzzed like static. Something was off. A shadow near the balcony. A man in a suit who didn't belong. His hand brushed against the small holster under his jacket. Then he saw it. A glint of metal beneath the stranger's sleeve. A gun. Victor's pulse kicked. He moved fast, weaving through the crowd, eyes locked on the threat. The clock neared midnight. The violins shifted to a fevered pitch. The champagne flowed faster, and tension wrapped itself tighter around the room. Evelyn, shaken and torn, finally approached Malik. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned. "Tell me the truth," she hissed. "Did you set me up? Was I just a cover for you?" Malik froze. For a second, he forgot the crowd, the deal, the eyes on him. All he saw was her, and the fracture in her trust. Before he could answer, a scream cut through the music. The hired gun stepped forward, raising his weapon. Gasps erupted. Glasses shattered against marble. Victor lunged. "Down!" he roared, drawing his own gun. Chaos exploded. Guests ducked behind tables. Chandeliers rattled, and the sharp crack of a gunshot split the air. One shot, then silence. All eyes turned. Someone was on the ground, blood blooming against satin. But it wasn't Malik, and it wasn't Evelyn. The crowd froze in shock as the body rolled into the light. Lena, her crimson gown darkened, her breath shallow. Her glass of wine shattered beside her hand. The room descended into hysteria. People screamed. Security swarmed. Jonas's face drained of color. Malik rushed forward, catching Lena as she gasped. Her eyes flickered, landing on Evelyn. A faint, bitter smile curved her lips, as if even in death she wanted Evelyn to wonder what was true. Victor stood over the fallen gunman, his own weapon smoking. The assassin was down, but his mission, it seemed, had already succeeded in chaos. Malik's perfect night was in ruins. The gala that was meant to crown him had turned into a battlefield. And the worst part? Nobody could tell if Lena's shooting was an accident or a message. The ballroom, once golden with chandeliers and champagne, was now soaked in panic and whispers. The music had died. Glasses lay shattered across the marble floor, and in the middle of it all lay Jonas, motionless, blood staining his crisp white shirt. The crowd circled at a distance, gasping, clutching their pearls, speaking in hurried tones. And there, only a few feet away, stood Malik. His hands were out, trembling, his face pale. In the chaos, it looked like the smoking gun was his. "Malik," someone cried. "No!" Malik barked, voice cracking with rage. "It wasn't me, but the damage was done." To the dozens of guests, investors, reporters, rivals, it was Malik who had been closest to Jonas when the shot rang out. To them, It looked like his empire had just collapsed in a single, brutal moment. Evelyn hadn't moved. Her breath caught in her throat as she replayed what she saw. She saw the flash, the angle, the truth. She knew Malik hadn't pulled the trigger. It had come from the balcony, from the shadows. But the room wanted a villain, and Malik was the perfect one. Their eyes met across the chaos. Malik's gaze begged her to speak, to save him. But Evelyn's chest tightened with doubt. If she stepped forward, she'd be dragged into the storm. If she stayed silent, Malik would go down for a crime he didn't commit. Her silence was a weapon. And right now, she wasn't sure who she wanted to aim it at. Sirens wailed outside within minutes. Police flooded in, weapons raised, barking orders. Guests shrieked and rushed for the exits. Flashbulbs popped as photographers outside snapped the scandal of the year. "Hands where we can see them," an officer shouted at Malik. "I didn't do this." Malik roared, his eyes darting wildly, searching for Evelyn. But she stayed rooted, frozen between truth and fear. They cuffed him on the marble floor, right beside Jonas's lifeless body. The man who had tried to ruin Malik now lay still, and Malik, humiliated, dragged away like a common criminal. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. Billionaire Mobile Malik Rowan arrested for gala shooting. $10 million deal ends in blood. Power, greed, and betrayal. The night, everything unraveled. And as Malik sat in a cold gray cell, a new queen rose. Lena moved fast. Too fast. By noon, she was seated in Malik's office, her heels clicking across the marble floor as if she had been rehearsing the moment for years. She wore black, feigning mourning, but her smirk betrayed her. "Gentlemen," she said smoothly to the board of directors gathered around the table, "Malik won't be available for the foreseeable future. And a company cannot survive without steady leadership." The men exchanged uncertain looks. "I propose," Lena continued, sliding documents across the table, "that I assume interim control, to protect Malik's legacy, to protect your investments, and to stabilize what's left after last night's disaster." Nobody stopped her. Nobody dared. By evening, Lena was in charge, and Malik's empire was hers to command. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in her apartment, curtains drawn, phone buzzing nonstop. Reporters wanted her story. Friends wanted to know if she was safe. But all she could hear was Lena's whisper from the night before. "He'll use you and then leave you to take the fall." Now, as Malik rotted in custody, those words tasted like prophecy. A knock at her door jolted her. She froze. Then a voice, low, urgent. "Evelyn, it's me." She opened the door to find Victor, suit rumpled, eyes sharp, every muscle on edge. "You need to disappear," he said flatly, pushing past her into the apartment. "Disappear? What are you talking about?" Evelyn asked, clutching her robe tighter. "Last night wasn't random. That hit was planned. Jonas was a pawn. Malik was the scapegoat. Whoever wanted this, they'll come for anyone who knows the truth. And you," he jabbed a finger at her chest, "you saw what really happened." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "You mean they'll come for me?" "They won't hesitate," Victor said. "If you testify, you'll damn Malik or you'll save him. Either way, you'll paint a target on your back. You're already in their crosshairs." Her throat went dry. She thought of Malik's face in that moment, desperate, betrayed. She thought of Lena's smile, already sitting on the throne. "I can't just leave," she whispered. "You can, and you will," Victor snapped. "You've got one chance to decide who you are in this story. The woman who saves Malik, or the woman who buries him." The room went silent. The weight of choice pressed down on Evelyn. Her hands shook as she realized. Her next move could either destroy Malik forever, or drag her into a war that might cost her everything. It started with a headline. The morning news broke like glass shattering against concrete. Secret note leaked. Within hours, every outlet had the story. Talk shows dissected it, bloggers speculated, conspiracy podcasts lit up the internet. The infamous note, once whispered about in corners, was now printed in bold across the front pages. The handwriting, the ink stains, the cryptic lines, all there for the world to see. They will never let this money stay clean. The deal is blood money, tied to men who wear suits by day and bury bodies by night. The The words crackled like electricity. The note wasn't just about Jonas. It hinted at a web of corruption, government officials, crime syndicates, shadowy partners. A scandal far bigger than anyone had imagined. In her apartment, Evelyn sat at the kitchen counter, a cup of coffee untouched, eyes glued to the screen. Her chest tightened with every word. She whispered to herself, almost trembling, this wasn't Jonas's voice. She knew Jonas, arrogant, ruthless, reckless, but poetic paranoia? That wasn't him. His confessions were usually blunt, sloppy, stained with whiskey. This note had a careful hand, a woman's hand, and suddenly, Evelyn felt the pieces shift into place. The tone, the phrasing, the careful, deliberate slant of the handwriting. Lena, she breathed. The realization chilled her. If Lena had written the note, it meant Jonas was just a mask. Lena had been setting the board long before anyone noticed. Meanwhile, in his cell, Malik read the same headline. The guards had slipped the newspaper under his door, maybe to mock him. But Malik wasn't rattled, he smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. When Victor came to visit later that afternoon, Malik leaned forward through the glass, his cuffed hands resting calmly on the table. You saw it? Malik asked. Victor nodded. The note is everywhere. It's chaos outside. They're tearing each other apart. Malik's eyes gleamed. Good. Chaos works in our favor. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Bring me that note, and I'll bring the truth. Victor frowned. What truth? The kind that burns down kingdoms, Malik replied. But I need the original, not the copies the press has. The original note holds fingerprints, traces, things the public can't see. You find it, I'll give you the real story. And believe me, Victor, he smirked, it's a story worth billions. Back in the city, Lena was thriving. Cameras followed her as she walked into the corporate tower, dressed in a fitted emerald suit, her hair perfect, her smile sharper than glass. When asked about the leaked note, she tilted her head, feigning sorrow. It's tragic, really. The world deserves transparency. But all I can say is this. My focus remains on leading this company responsibly. Malik's era is over. The crowd of reporters lapped it up. She was untouchable, or so she thought. Inside the boardroom, however, murmurs spread. Some directors feared the company was now too exposed, too entangled in something much bigger. And though Lena assured them she was cleaning house, Evelyn knew the truth. Lena had written the note. And now the whole house of cards trembled on her handwriting. That night, Evelyn's phone buzzed. An unlisted number. She hesitated, then answered. Evelyn. Her pulse spiked. Malik's voice. How are you calling me? She stammered. Doesn't matter, he said smoothly. What matters is the note. I know you've seen it. I know you've guessed. Her silence gave her away. Yes, Malik said, as if reading her mind. It was Lena, not Jonas. She's been orchestrating this from the shadows, planting evidence, pulling strings. And now she's painting me as the villain while she wears the crown. Evelyn swallowed hard. And if I bring you the note? Malik's tone hardened. Then I bring you the truth. Names, dates, accounts. Proof that Lena's empire isn't just built on money. It's built on corpses. With that truth, we take her down together. Evelyn stared out her window at the city lights, her heart racing. She could almost see Lena on the skyline, towering, untouchable, grinning behind the facade of power. And she thought of Malik, bruised, caged, but still dangerous, still commanding even from a cell. The note was out there, somewhere, the key to everything. And if she found it, she would hold the power to rewrite the story. But one question haunted her. If Malik's promise of the truth was real, would it set her free or drag her into a war she could never escape? The Rowan estate loomed like a fortress at the edge of the city. Tall iron gates, manicured gardens lit by cold white lamps, and windows glowing like eyes watching the night. Evelyn's car slowed to a stop on the gravel drive. Her hands trembled on the wheel, but her jaw was set. Tonight, she wasn't leaving with half answers. Tonight, she would confront Lena face to face. Inside, the air was heavy with wealth and menace. Velvet drapes, polished marble, oiled paintings of ancestors who looked just as ruthless as their heir. Evelyn's heels echoed down the hallway until she found Lena in the grand parlor, glass of red wine in hand, draped across a chaise like a queen awaiting her subject. "Well, if it isn't Evelyn," Lena said smoothly, her lips curling into a knowing smile. "You look nervous. That means you know something." Evelyn didn't flinch. "The note. It wasn't Jonas. It was you. You set this entire thing in motion." Lena laughed softly, swirling her wine. Jonas was sloppy, drunk, impulsive. He could never have written something so eloquent. "Yes, Evelyn, it was me. I orchestrated the betrayal, fed Malik just enough rope to hang himself. And the note? That was my insurance." The words landed like knives. Evelyn felt her stomach twist, but she stood her ground. "You destroyed him. You destroyed everyone." "Destroy?" Lena tilted her head, her tone sharp as broken glass. "No, dear. I saved this city. Without me pulling the strings, the truth would have exploded in every direction. And no one survives the truth." Then, as if on cue, another voice cut through the silence. "Especially not when you're standing on the wrong side of it." Evelyn spun around. Victor stepped from the shadows, his tie loosened, his expression cold. He looked at Lena, then at Evelyn, as though weighing which side would pay him more. Lena smirked. "Ah, Victor. Always on time and always on both sides." Evelyn's eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" Lena leaned forward, her voice a venomous whisper. "Victor was never Malik's loyal soldier. He was mine, feeding me information, keeping me 2 steps ahead. Malik trusted him, and that's why Malik is sitting in a cell while I'm sipping wine." Victor didn't deny it. He simply straightened his jacket, unbothered by the truth spilling into the open. "Loyalty is expensive, Evelyn, and Malik could never pay enough." Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears. The room was spinning, betrayals layered upon betrayals, a labyrinth of lies she could barely keep up with. But the final twist was still to come. Lena placed her glass down, her eyes glittering. "You want to know what the $10 million was really for?" Evelyn's voice cracked. "Tell me." "It wasn't just betrayal money," Lena said, almost savoring the words. "It was hush money, to cover a scandal so big, so rotten, it would have swallowed the city whole. Politicians, judges, CEOs, the kind of names carved into skyscrapers. That money bought silence, Evelyn. Without it, the entire city burns." The weight of it crushed Evelyn's chest. She could almost see it. The headlines, the riots, the empire collapsing into ash. "So you buried it," Evelyn whispered. "I protected it," Lena snapped. "The city runs on secrets, and I'm the one who keeps them buried." The confrontation spiraled into shouting. Evelyn accusing Lena of playing God. Lena defending her role as the invisible architect of order. Victor watching like a man guarding both exits. The parlor became a battleground of words sharper than knives. And then silence. Lena leaned back, smiling coldly. "You wanted the truth, Evelyn. Now you have it. What will you do with it? Expose us? Ruin everyone? Or walk away and survive?" Evelyn couldn't answer. Her heart was pounding too fast, her throat too dry. She turned and walked out, her legs shaking, but her will intact. Days later, Malik's empire lay in ruins. His companies dismantled, his marriage dissolved in bitter silence, his freedom reduced to the concrete walls of a prison cell. He had gambled everything on loyalty and lost it all to betrayal. And Evelyn, she survived. But survival didn't feel like victory. In her apartment, she sat alone at the kitchen table. The note lay before her, its edges worn, its words heavy with all the blood and lies they carried. She read it one last time, her eyes tracing the sentences that had burned down empires. Then, with trembling fingers, she lit a match. The paper curled, blackened, and dissolved into ash. "Some truths," she whispered to the empty room, "should never be read." The flame flickered out, leaving only smoke. And Evelyn sat in the dim silence, carrying the weight of secrets she could never speak, the lone survivor of a truth no one was meant to survive. Months had passed, but the shadows hadn't left Evelyn. She had traded the steel skyline of the city for a quiet coastal town where the sea met the horizon in endless gray. The streets were slow, the cafes unhurried, the air salted and clean. On the outside, she looked like a woman who had rebuilt her life, working at a small bookstore, walking along the shore at dusk, living in a cottage with creaking floorboards and too many locks on the door. But inside, she was still there, in the Rowan estate parlor, in the courtroom where Malik's empire was torn apart, in the suffocating silence of a note that could never be unread. Sometimes, at night, Evelyn would sit by the window, staring at the waves while sipping cheap red wine, trying to convince herself she was free. Yet freedom came with a strange kind of prison, the silence she had chosen. Far away, Malik was a shadow of the man he once was. The man who had once commanded boardrooms, who moved through the world with arrogance and power, now lived under the harsh fluorescent lights of a prison cell. His tailored suits replaced with faded uniforms, his empire traded for a rusting bunk bed. He was gaunt, his once commanding voice reduced to a low murmur. In the prison yard, men whispered his name with half-interest, as though his story was just another cautionary tale of power gone wrong. Malik had lost it all, his fortune, his marriage, his reputation, and yet the cruelest punishment wasn't the bars. It was knowing that Lena was out there, thriving, running what he built with the same cold hands that helped dismantle it. Lena, on the other hand, was thriving. The Rowan Company was hers now, and she ruled it with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a warlord. Board members feared her, employees respected her, and rivals envied her. She wore her victory like a crown, sleek, untouchable, flawless. Yet behind the perfect lipstick and tailor blazers, Lena carried her own ghosts. She never mentioned Evelyn. She never mentioned Malik. But sometimes when she stood at her office window overlooking the city, she could feel the weight of what she had buried. The scandal, the hush money, the secrets that kept the city from burning. Lena didn't regret her choices, but she understood the cost. Every deal she signed, every meeting she dominated, carried the faint metallic taste of poison. And Victor was gone. One day, his apartment was empty, his bank accounts drained. No notes, no explanations. Just silence. Some said he fled overseas. Others whispered he had been swallowed by the very secrets he once sold. For Evelyn, his absence was the most unsettling truth of all. A man like Victor never simply vanished. He was always waiting, somewhere, watching for his next opportunity. Evelyn carried all of this with her, like a second skin she couldn't shed. She had chosen to burn the note, to bury the truth forever. But the silence came at a cost. She couldn't sleep without hearing Lena's laugh, or Malik's broken voice on the day of his sentencing, or the sound of paper curling into ash. And sometimes, when she sat in her little coastal cottage, she replayed the dinner table in her mind, that night where everything began. The glasses clinking, the polite laughter, the smell of roasted lamb and expensive wine. Every bite at that table had been poison, not in the literal sense, but in the way betrayal seeps into the air, invisible and irreversible. The note had changed all of their lives, Malik's, Lena's, Victor's, and most of all, hers. But Evelyn also knew something chilling, something she would never say out loud. The note wasn't gone. Not really. Secrets never burn completely. One evening, as the sun bled into the ocean and her wine glass caught the last light of day, Evelyn whispered to herself, the words echoing in the empty room. Some truths may be buried, but silence always comes with a price. The waves crashed louder, as though answering her. And just like that, the story closed. Not with peace, not with closure, but with the haunting reminder that the past never truly lets go. Because in the end, silence wasn't freedom. It was just another kind of prison.